announcing if you need someone to give you a second chance.
And don't forget the Kessler's warranty.
The strongest warranty of any jewelry store in the world.
For the location of the Kesslers nearest you, visit KesslersDiamonds.com.
Hey, boaters!
Some call them oddball parts, but we call them a huge part of our inventory. Dave Doro here from Kendor Marine. With thousands of boat parts and supplies stacked right here in our store, you won't have to look elsewhere. If you need it, chances are we got it, along with expert advice to get your job done right. Hey, boaters in the know exactly where to go. Kendor Marine, 57th and Ryan Road in Franklin.
Hey, boaters! Cruise to Kendor Marine. We got everything you need but the water.
KendorMarine.com.
Hey, boaters!
It's a boater's do-it-yourselfer's dream store. Kendor Marine stocks thousands of boat parts and supplies. Just about everything you'd ever need to keep your boat up and running. Whether it's common or something you think might be discontinued, you can bet on us having it. So don't be surprised when we have just what you need. I'm Dave Doro, and boaters in the know exactly where to go. Kendor Marine, 57th and Ryan Road in Franklin.
Hey, boaters! Cruise to Kendor Marine. We got everything you need but the water.
KendorMarine.com.
Time for WTMJ's sports update from the Gruber Law Office's One Call That's All Sports Desk. Scouting Combine Week is underway in Indianapolis. A goal for Packers General Manager Brian Gutekunst.
We need to affect the quarterback with 4. We had good moments last year, but it just needs to be more consistent. It needs to be able to control the game, and we need to control the game and finish games off. I'm excited about the guys we have in the room. We'll see if we add to it, but that's got to get better if we're going to accomplish our goals that we want to accomplish in this season.
And in college hoops, 21st ranked Marquette hosts Providence for a 6 p.m. tip-off time. Here at the game on 94.5 ESPN. And the 11th ranked Wisconsin Badgers host Washington for an 8 p.m. tip-off. Badger sports updates are sponsored by Siding Unlimited, Siding, and a whole lot more. Take a look at your road with your WTMJ Johnson Sons Paving Time Saver traffic. You have one major incident on the road at I-94 East at Mitchell Boulevard. The right shoulder is blocked due to a disabled vehicle. Other than that, roads are looking pretty good across the Milwaukee area. Time for your WTMJ 5-day forecast. Tonight, we're going to see some increasing cloud coverage with a low of 33 degrees. Wednesday, we'll see some scattered showers roll in, a few wet snowflakes north of us, and a high of 45 degrees. Thursday, we'll get some isolated rain and snow showers. It'll be mostly cloudy with a high of 42 degrees. Friday is going to be partly cloudy, mild and breezy with a high of 52 degrees. Saturday, partly cloudy with a high of 35 degrees. Right now in Madison, it is 45 degrees. In Green Bay, it's 43 degrees. In Waukesha, it's 43 degrees. In Milwaukee, it's 46 degrees. I'm Sean Brenda, Outdoor Living Unlimited. WTMJ News Time is 6:07.
It's time for Buck Shoot Around on WTMJ. We get you warmed up, stretched out, and ready for tip-off. This is Buck Shoot Around. Now, here's your host, Justin Garcia.
Bucks looking to keep things rolling tonight and potentially pick up a 5-game win streak. They're in Houston to take on the Rockets. It is their second and final matchup against the Rockets this season. Got to go back to all the way back to November 18th for the last time these two teams played, and that was at the time one of the better wins the Bucks had achieved so far this season. A 101-100 victory on the home floor. It was at a period where it started like they were starting to come out of that 2-8 start and the sluggish first month or so of the season that the Bucks were in the midst of. And it was a Rockets team that was already showing you the signs of what we've seen through most of this season. They're currently 5th in the Western Conference, getting it done with a very, very solid defense and some young offensive pieces that are starting to develop tonight. So this is going to be a good test for the Bucks to see if they can keep this rolling and push the win streak up to 5 games before returning home for a big one Thursday night against Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets. Just 2 games remain between now and March 1st, and we've spent a lot of time earlier this season talking about the Bucks schedule after the All-Star break, and specifically in that month of March, how things start to pick up quite a bit. And it's really once you get into the second week of March that you are faced with an incredibly challenging schedule. As it stands right now, the Bucks have the 5th most difficult schedule of any team remaining. It is the toughest schedule in the Eastern Conference. So all the help that you can get. Case in point, last night, we mentioned the Denver Nuggets will be in Milwaukee on Thursday. They were in Indianapolis last night and beat the Pacers. So the Bucks enter today tied with the Indiana Pacers at 32-24 for the fourth best record in the Eastern Conference. You need to win all these games you can and take advantage of those types of games on your schedule because of what's waiting for you at the midpoint of March all the way until the end of that month. They're going to catch some breaks. The Bucks are coming up now in the immediate future. And with 26 games remaining, I think one of the more interesting parts, we talked about the schedule and how it ranks fifth most difficult in the league, most difficult in the Eastern Conference. It's at least an even split between home and road games. 13 games at home, 13 on the road. But a .539 opponent win percentage for the Bucks. When you look at teams in the Eastern Conference that are closer to the Bucks, you got to go all the way down to 12th. 12th most difficult belongs to the Brooklyn Nets, who have a .510 opponent win percentage remaining on their schedule. And meanwhile, teams like the Pacers, they're in the bottom 10. They have a sub-500 opponent win percentage remaining. The Miami Heat as well, who've been going through it. The Bucks were one of those teams to push them through it on Sunday. Miami Heat, 24th most difficult schedule remaining. The Boston Celtics, as if they need any help, have the third easiest schedule remaining. So all these teams around the Bucks have an easier schedule. So the games, and they are very rare from here on out, but the games where you have opponents that are below 500, those are going to be very important games for the Bucks to at least keep the pace with Indiana and those other teams. You cannot sleep on the Detroit Pistons. Those are going to be two huge games at the very, very end of the regular season that wait for the Bucks. But tonight is not one of those games. As we mentioned, the Houston Rockets are currently in the mix for home court advantage in the Western Conference playoffs, and a very good young core that Houston has at 35-22. They've been passed by the Lakers for fourth, so they currently sit at fifth in the Western Conference. They're dealing with a bit of injuries as well. Fred VanVleet, who has had a career of big games against the Bucks, is not going to play, but that's nothing new for Houston of late. They've been without him for a little bit of a stretch of time now. They've made up for it with continuing to develop some of their young pieces. Jalen Green, who has really taken a step forward so far this season, has had some big games of late, but Amen Thompson is the biggest piece who has exploded for the Rockets since being inserted into the starting lineup. He had a nice game against the Bucks in that first matchup. Granted, that was coming off the bench, and that's how Houston gets it done. Their defense is among the best in the league. Fourth best, depending on whatever you use. If you take out the garbage time stats or not, they're fourth or fifth best defense in the league. The point is, it's an elite defense, and they are the best by a wide margin at offensive rebounds. And I bring this up because the Bucks, for the longest time, year after year after year, were the best or one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the league. That was a staple under the Mike Budenholzer Bucks. They're a very good defensive team. They didn't foul. They didn't give you a whole lot of free throw attempts. They got a lot of defensive rebounds. They closed the possession, so you weren't getting second chance opportunities. Started to slip a little bit at times this season. It started to slip recently as well. When Bobby Portis was missing time, that's when the rebounding numbers on the defensive glass started to slide for the Bucks. It is imperative that is not the case tonight because of what Houston does on the offensive glass and how they translate those into second chance opportunities. So it's really as simple as that for the Bucks defense and the turnaround that we've seen from this group. You have to finish possessions. Get the defensive rebound. Don't allow the opponent that second chance. We saw it start to pop up recently. The Bucks have done a much better job of calming that down, and I don't think it's coincidental that we've seen the Bucks peel off 4 straight wins. You can point to some of the teams in that win streak. Miami Heat were playing pretty well right around the time of that game. I know they had a losing streak. They came back and had a very strong win against the Toronto Raptors, who you can point to the record and say, well, it's the Raptors. They've had some nice wins recently, have Toronto. Minnesota Timberwolves, you beat them without Giannis and Damian Lillard. Timberwolves just came back from down 22 points going into the fourth quarter last night to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in overtime. So look, as we said at the top of this show, the important part, win the games you have a chance to win. It's not even just if this team is below 500, as was the case with the Washington Wizards, although there was a lot that went behind that game. Chris Middleton's first game, coincidentally, with his new team just so happens to be against his former team in the Milwaukee Bucks. The first time, by the way, Chris Middleton had ever played a game against the Milwaukee Bucks. That one season he had in Detroit, played 27 games, missed all 4 games against the Bucks. So there was a lot to unpack in that game. But when you're in the game, the important part is, look, if it's a winnable game, you got to get that because of the schedule, the 26 games you have remaining, the opponents you have on that stretch. And I mentioned, especially once you get to the midpoint of March, that's when that 5-game Western Conference road trip pops up. That's when you see quite a bit more teams on the schedule. Both games with the Los Angeles Lakers, who now not only have LeBron James, Luka Doncic as well. Steph Curry and the rejuvenated Golden State Warriors with Jimmy Butler in tow, who already beat you just, a week ago? And another game in Denver against the Nuggets. So you got a lot of those games, 2 big games against the Indiana Pacers at the midpoint of the month, and you still have 2 games left against the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks. So a very challenging stretch. The important part is keeping yourself in games and winning those games that you remain in. So we'll take a closer look at this Houston Rockets opponent, but I do want to get to that schedule that we referenced and what the Bucks have directly in front of them, not only tonight, and as we mentioned, Thursday night at home against Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, but the next stretch of 9 games to kick off the month of March, those may well be the most important games for the Bucks leading into the most difficult stretch of scheduling and may dictate where it is the Bucks finish in the Eastern Conference standings. We'll get into that conversation coming up after this on Bucks Shoot Around.
With the ability to market luxury homes on a higher scale than ever before, Century 21 Benefit Realty has taken a huge step forward to tap into a global network of buyers. Maximum exposure to spotlight your unique home with our fine homes and estates marketing so you can sell it for the highest price. And with no upfront fees and 1.9% real estate commission, you win. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated. First off, our 1.9% commission structure helps get their foot in the door, and that's why agents like working here. But what they really like is having the strongest marketing tools available, with the resources to help them sell homes at the highest prices to satisfy their clients. Century 21 Benefit Realty offers what agents like most, and that's to help them be successful. If you really want to believe in the business model that you're representing, give me a call. I'm Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty. Call me, and let's talk about your future. Each office is independently owned and operated.
Imagine all the things you dream of under one roof. You're thinking of eBay. Fashion, collectibles, car parts. It's all there. Go find the thing that keeps you up at night. eBay. Things people love.
It's like being trapped in a cage. And I know, that sounds dramatic. But your breathing triangle problem has got you trapped. And once you're freed, you're going to be able to live the life that you're missing out on. Now, this can simply mean experiencing the true pleasure of breathing freely. It will mean better sleep and more energy. And the worry of this problem anymore affecting your life is going to be gone. Because in almost every case, when Advent has solved a breathing triangle problem, it's a one and done. Because we're not in the business of delivering Band-Aids. We want to fix your nasal breathing problem for good. We don't want you to be a lifelong patient. We want you to be our next success story.
Isn't it time you break free from that cage? Take the next step. Go to adventknows.com to schedule your appointment because Advent knows when you breathe well, you live better.
Breathe well with simple solutions. AdventKnows.com.
Results may vary. Most insurance accepted.
Now, more of Buck Shoot Around on WTMJ.
So the Bucks look to make it 5 straight wins tonight. They've gone 3-0 coming out of the All-Star break. They beat the Minnesota Timberwolves heading into the break. So overall, the vibes are pretty good right now, despite the fact that you got the Bobby Portis 25-game suspension to deal with. But there's a couple of things that have kind of stood out to me about the Bucks' rotations and starting lineup that I do want to get to in just a second here. Fred VanVleet, as we mentioned, is out tonight dealing with termed as a right ankle strain. I thought that was reserved for muscles. So Fred VanVleet is out with an ankle issue. And Dylan Brooks and Jayshawn Tate both listed as questionable on the injury report. It sounds as though it's going to be a game-time decision for those two pieces. But again, with Fred VanVleet out, that means Amen Thompson is going to be in the starting lineup, where he has started to really thrive for the Houston Rockets. And again, had a nice game against the Bucks in that first matchup earlier this season, November 18th, when the Bucks held on to beat the Houston Rockets in a thriller, 101-100, the final score in that one. And Brook Lopez was a big piece for the Bucks in that game. Played 40 minutes in that game, scored 27 points, and blocked 4 shots. I do think the Houston Rockets are a good matchup for Brook Lopez. Alperen Şengün named an All-Star this season. His continued development has been huge for the Rockets. But Alperen Şengün is, I hesitate to call him a poor man's Nikola Jokic, but that's his game style. And that's something that I think fits into what you can do with Brook Lopez. It's not one of those get up and down the floor, stretch the floor, Miles Turner type of big men. And I think that plays into Brook Lopez's hand. So going to be curious to watch Brook Lopez tonight, as we mentioned, the importance of defensive rebounding for the Bucks. But that brings me to what we mentioned before about this new starting lineup. So it was a conversation I had on the post-game show, on a few other places as well, about, coming out of the break with this trade, or these trades, I should say, that the Bucks made. Do you start to explore making some changes to the starting lineup? Because when Andre Jackson Jr. was inserted into the starting lineup earlier this season, it came at a time when the Bucks needed that spark, and they needed somebody to defend at the point of attack. And I've seen a lot of people point to, I don't want to change the starting lineup with Ajax. I don't want to take him out of there because the Bucks' turnaround coincided with Andre Jackson Jr. being put into that starting lineup. And while that is true and fair, I don't know that that's the reason why. It was a part of what we saw. But the moves the Bucks made at the trade deadline, and this isn't just, for Andre Jackson Jr., it's for that other name we mentioned, in Brook Lopez. It changed the personnel severely for the Bucks in a good way, in how they can play, in that it's pretty clear. We were all aware the Bucks were an older team, and you would say, hey, it's an old, slow team. They don't get up and down the floor. They're not great in transition. But I do think it's something you don't fully grasp the levels of while you're in it. You have to be removed from it and see, wow, yeah, that's what stands out. And that's what's occurred over these past 4 or 5 games, as you can see. Wow, Kyle Kuzma, Kevin Porter Jr., Jericho Sims, all of these changes, that really changes things for this group. And I talked earlier in the season about, look, the biggest reason for the Bucks' defensive turnaround to go from a team that was in the bottom 10 consistently defensive rating last year to a team that, as we stand here now, has the 11th best defense in the league, tied for 11th. They're tied for 10th, I should say, with the Miami Heat. Consistently a top 10 defense. And one of the biggest reasons, not just clean up defensive rebounds and what that does to limit second chance opportunities, take away transition opportunities, limiting your liabilities. And it applies to everything in life, right? Limit the liabilities that you have, and you will be in a good spot. That was one of the bigger things the Bucks did this season, where at any given time, a season ago, you could look at the floor and you could say, well, there's 2 guys, maybe more, we feel like we can target and attack. That is simply not the case this season. That has gone a long way in pushing this defense consistently to one of the best in the league, because it takes the pressure off everyone else to have that constant thought of, is this guy going to get beat? Am I going to have to slide over and help? Am I going to have to scramble? Are we going to have to double team, and then that's going to leave somebody else open? That's gone. And I think the same can be said about the Bucks' athleticism now after this trade. You have limited, I hate to call it liabilities, but you have limited those slow-footed players and players that are going to play at a slower pace. Damian Lillard is one of them. But Brook Lopez, I think this trade, I'm not going to say reinvigorated, because Brook Lopez has been excellent once again this season, but it's opened up so much for Brook Lopez, where you have guys like a Kyle Kuzma that can crash the offensive glass and still get back defensively. They can do both. Before, the Bucks were just saying, hey, we can't afford to do it. We're just going to get back defensively. And Brook Lopez doesn't have to get down there to get the offense started. He's the guy that has opened up trail opportunities on three-point attempts, and that's the one, again, I hate to use the word liability, but that's the one liability you have in that style of play, and I think that's started to change how we've seen the Bucks play differently, with more pace, with a little more unorthodox approach as well in the case of Kevin Porter Jr. and his offensive game, but especially on the defensive end of the floor. We'll see if we have an update on those two names we mentioned earlier, and Jayshawn Tate, and the rest of the injury report for the Houston Rockets as we continue to get set for tip-off tonight in Houston. The Bucks and the Rockets will wrap things up after this.
So how would I describe our people? I'd say the people we set out to hire have to be smart, hardworking, and honest. Honesty being paramount of the three. Because honesty breeds integrity. And when you have integrity, you won't let yourself do anything less than your best. And that's who we're looking for. Character counts here, and integrity matters. And that's why it's easy for us to offer the industry's best lifetime workmanship warranty with every roof we sell. A rock-solid warranty like ours guarantees our reputation and assures your satisfaction. At Semper Fi, we do the right thing. We seize the moral high ground, and we hold it. And when you do that, you end up having a business that's going to last for generations. This is Brad Youngbluth with Semper Fi Roofing and Exteriors, your local, veteran-owned and operated exterior remodeling company. For your new roof, siding, window and door installation, or masonry work, you can count on Semper Fi to keep you safe, warm, and dry.
We keep you safe, warm, and dry. Semper Fi.
If you're living with joint pain in your shoulders, hips, elbows, and knees, and you have Medicare or Medicaid insurance, coming to Rejuvenex to solve your pain problems is something you should strongly consider. First off, because our FDA-approved pain treatments have been shown in many cases to be highly effective at reducing inflammation and substantially alleviating pain. Secondly, Medicare and Medicaid cover Rejuvenex treatments, so your cost could be nothing, or next to nothing at all. Chronic pain will only worsen with age. This leads to a far more compromised lifestyle, depression, and soon they start talking surgery. And then what? You have to get in front of arthritis and chronic pain, because the sooner you do, by letting us begin to calm those pain points, the better. I'm Rejuvenex founder Richard Salinas, and we can alleviate your pain so you can rejuvenate your life. Go to Rejuvenex.com to request your free pain evaluation.
You're listening to Bucks Shoot Around on WTMJ.
All right, Bucks in Houston tonight taking on the Rockets. Tip-off coming your way momentarily here. The pregame show, I should say, coming your way momentarily with myself and Dave Kane. Be sure to stick around after the game for Bucks Talk as we recap what is hopefully the fifth straight win for the Milwaukee Bucks. But really, the things to keep an eye on tonight, number one, just the overall defensive approach of the Houston Rockets. They have so many guys that can take on challenges on the perimeter, bigger wing players. Amen Thompson, one of those players to keep an eye on specifically. And rebounding, the importance there of closing out possessions for the Bucks against a Rockets team that is the best in the league by a wide margin at offensive rebounds, but also transition. The Bucks have not made massive strides since the trade deadline, but they've gotten incrementally better both offensively and defensively in transition. That's another area where the Rockets really thrive. So those two areas may well determine who wins this game tonight. Bucks and Houston Rockets comes your way after this.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Pick and Save for thousands of appetizing ingredients that inspire countless mouth-watering meals. And no matter what tasty choice you make,